So we're going to talk about lean product development. I know it said lean in engineering, that was kind of deceptive. And I think they'd already published all the materials before we got started. But my name is Deb Secor. I've worked at Rockwell Collins for 35 years. So I'm one of the dinosaurs from Rockwell. But I've loved working there, and I work in engineering and technology. And engineering and technology is our umbrella organization that helps engineers be the best that they can be. So we do a lot of things. We take care of engineering tool development. We have people who do training, systems engineering, software, hardware training. We have, we do non-advocacy reviews on programs. There's a lot of different varied services that we do. I myself do a lot of program planning. I have Kristen and I actually introduced a methodology that we call Lean Enabled Accelerated Planning. And we go out and we do the program planning with programs as they're getting started, getting kicked off with the key stakeholders. So just a little bit of background. I'm also on the Lean Advisory Council for Rockwell Collins, representing engineering and technology. Each one of our divisions has a Lean Advisory Council member, and I relate things to the entire engineering and technology group and throughout the business, and then to my level one, who's the Senior Vice President of engineering and technology. And ask any questions, because this is a small group and we can definitely go any way that we want on this. Okay, so hopefully you guys have seen this chart in some form or fashion. This to me, anytime I go to a site, I do any kind of teaching or training, I say if you would just print this out and put this somewhere in your cubicle or your office and just look at it every once in a while. This will change the way that you think. And if you think of these are the 5 principles, and we actually add one more, we add respect for people. If you think of it as value, and that's value from the perspective of the customer, never from our perspective, it's always from the customer perspective. The value stream, what is that set of activities and tasks that needs to be done so you understand how you get things and how you hand things off. The flow, how that actually flows through there. We've got some excellent training, and one of the best descriptive things about flow that I've seen is when you're in a stream and there's eddies and there's backflows, or you're in a pipe. We want things to try and go through there in a pipe. And when you think about product development and engineering, you think, how could that work? But if you think about all the waiting times, all the cues, all the information you don't have to try and finish your job or even start your job, requirements that haven't been defined. So if you could get things to be more like a pipe moving through in a straight line, rather than that constant backflow and circling around. The pull is actually just doing what the customer values, and a lot of times we tend to over-engineer, overproduce what the customer really doesn't care about. Perfection is just always competing against ourselves. We always want to be better, so we're always striving for perfection. The one thing that I don't have up there is the respect for people, and I'm going to show you some of that in the Lean Enablers that I've had the huge opportunity to work with outside groups. So the relentless commitment to eliminating waste and increasing delivered value to our customers. That should be what Lean is all about. And I just beg people, please, if nothing else, if you don't remember anything else, value stream, flow, pull, perfection. And you know, this is pretty much textbook, but it's really something that you can take and you can apply to any process. Oh, I do have a clicker thing too, don't I? Not very mechanically adept, so. Okay, so this is the agenda. I'm talking about lean product development at Rockwell Collins, and I really encourage you to ask any questions at all, because this is, I'm going to talk more about structures and things that we've set in place that standard work for product development. The Lean Enablers are some of the things that I've worked with outside committees, and it's just been a great experience, and you guys can join that. It's open to anyone who's interested. So if you find that it's something that applies to what your interest is, I'll tell you where those locations are. Some of our challenges were actually identified from the Lean Enablers groups. I've been involved with the Lean Enablers for Systems Engineering group and the Lean Enablers for Program Management. And so we identified some of the top challenges, and hopefully you'll be able to look at those and do those apply to you. I know that when we put the list together, it was like they were in our company watching us because they're very, very common across the industry. And some different lean product development approaches. There's some great books out there. I just kind of did some excerpts on this is what this person says, this is what this person says, but there's some very good lean product development books that you know, they're great reference materials. And then the summary. So the first thing that we're going to talk about we actually have these structures in place. And, Rockwell Collins, 20,000 people, we're a global company, and we continue to grow. And we're growing with acquisitions, where, hopefully the markets also continue to grow with us. So we have these different systems set up, and actually, we have this strategic and financial planning is one of our core processes. Our other core processes are the pursuit and order capture, design and development, build, and service and support. So we identified those back in like the 1998 timeframe. We said we really need to understand those pieces of the core processes and how they work together in the value stream. So it was a siloed look at each one of the processes, but it was to make each one of those better. So that was one thing that we did, and we still have those core processes in place. The other thing that we have is called the Management Authorization Process, or RCMAP. And that is our decision points in it. This would be a decision point A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So our decision point A is basically, we're starting to think about something. Some market entry, some pursuit, some bid. When we get to decision point B, we're actually going to start putting some money behind it and possibly a few resources. Between decision point C and D, we're really going to start investing. We're going to assign leadership, we'll assign program management, we'll assign lead systems engineer, the people who are going to be planning for the project. And in decision point D is when we actually start executing. This is when we're doing the design and development. We get to decision point E, and that's when we hand off to operations. So we have these, you can call them stage gates. Rockwell hates to use the word gate, so we don't use it, we use decision point. But if you think of those as our gates, and then once we've gone through transition to manufacturing, we go to a decision point F. And this is when we're starting to get into the service aspect. And decision point G is actually when we say we're no longer going to support it. We would be sending out service bulletins in our business, just to tell the customers that you're no longer going to be supporting it. Hopefully you're selling them something new that went through DPD, and it's going to, replace the obsoleted project. So then we also have our integrated performance management, and part of this is just our entire life cycle value stream. So it's a lot of pieces and parts on top of each other, and each one very carefully thought out, and it creates a system. It's basically my emphasis here. So MAP, I've got, and these slides will also be out there for you, so you'll be able to look at them and say, does this make sense for my company? So those planned reviews, the decision points that I talked about, that you basically can think of as gates. And with those gates, we also have a role of the life cycle value stream leader or manager, LCVSM, LCVSL. Those are teams, but it's also individuals. It's your program managers that are responsible for the lean-to-tune support of the product. And so that is the intent when you're a life cycle value stream leader, is to understand from that very, very early conception of the project and the product, all the way through discontinuation. That's the ideal state for our LCVSMs to operate in. Now with the environment, it's real hard to keep one person on one project. I hope, I'm sure you can all identify with somebody moves in, moves off on another project, but that is the intent, is to really do the womb to tomb approach. And the LCVSMs also are the ones who control the money. They control the funding. Engineering supports the product development. Manufacturing supports the build. But the LCVSMs actually really control the money. The funding, the earned value part of it, all those rules around it. So each one of those decision points actually has authorization. And it's got questions. You're basically graded. You don't go forward until you've passed the gates. So then the integrated performance management is the arrow that we're on here. And this is the process that's used to plan and manage the projects. So it's used in conjunction with the decision point process with the RCMAP. And that requires that you have key plans. So one thing that we have found at Rockwell Collins is if you don't plan, you will not execute. It just, a lot of tribal knowledge. We have an awful lot of, bench strength with a lot of our gray beards, we call it, our experienced people. But I think right now 50% of our engineers have been there less than 5 years. So that's tough. It's really difficult. They don't They might not even have a mentor. They might not have anyone they could go to for advice. So what we have is these checkpoints, and we have these processes in place to help them and to collect the knowledge that needs to be done. So we have reviews, we have program reviews, we have like our PDR, CDR, TR, test readiness reviews, those kind of checks throughout this process too. So this is assessing your program and project performance, and then the artifacts that are associated with it. And being in the avionics business, we have an awful lot of certification artifacts. Some businesses don't have to be saddled with all that certification stuff that we have to do, which could add millions of dollars to your project. So the next piece that we're looking at is the business consistent process, and this is basically our rules. And it includes all the shalls. You shall do this, you should do this, and that's our procedure that's at the very high level, that business consistent process. So that's the solution for evaluating and selecting investment opportunities. So BCP, IPM, DP, everything is all, if we show it on the chart, they're all woven together. They're all pieces of the process, pieces of the operating system. So you've got the process used to plan and manage the programs. You have required plans, and this is, how you're going to start, how you will finish, and all that happens in between. And then those reviews, and that's both with the customer and internal reviews. Okay, so basically now we get down to what I was going to talk about, design and development. So that is one of our core processes, and that will lead us to the lean product development. The design and development process, like I said, is one of our 5 core processes, and you probably all have core processes through your business. I think that's probably pretty consistent. So we take ideas and turn them into solutions. That's the intent, is to find what the customer needs and develop a solution for them. So with the design and development process, we actually have something that we call the technical consistent process. And this is probably a little unusual for most companies. That there's manufacturing guidelines, there's checklists, there's you do a lot of you do this step 1, step 2, step 3. With engineering processes, it's less amenable to that. It's really hard to step through innovation, to step through inventing ideas. So the technical consistent process that we developed is basically creating a framework that you go through and you tailor for each project. So if you think of it as a superset of all the activities and tasks that you might have to do for a program, and then you think about what are the customer requirements, what do I need to do, I tailor out what I don't need, I make sure I accommodate what does need to be done. That's what our TCP provides that framework for. And the TCP, we work with a lot of other aerospace and defense companies. This seems to be kind of a novel idea, is to have engineering thinking in kind of a focused way like this, to have a checklist approach, to know that I'm going to tailor this piece out very consciously. I will not be funding this piece of it because of X decision. I'll be putting this in my risk register and monitoring it throughout the life cycle. So that does provide the foundation for our project planning and execution in our engineering world. So that's when we're getting from C to D, the decision points, and this is the planning that would be required. And this is just a picture of what the TCP looks like. Again, it's a web-based going through. You answer questions, you add comments, we have RASI along with the tool, who's responsible, who needs to be approving, who needs to support, who needs to be informed. So we have a lot of lean tools kind of embedded in the TCP. The TCP, we used to have, this would be basically our management activities, and this was never accounted for before in the engineering process. Now we have set direction, assess risk, plan, execute, and evaluate. And as you see, this is very cyclical as we're going through and planning projects. And then here's what I would call kind of the pure engineering piece of it, the V model. And this is also, the TCP is based on this V model. So we have questions that are associated with each one of these sections of work. And it'll go through, and the engineering team and the rest of the stakeholder team would answer the questions, know what kind of plans they need to create. Like one of the questions is, are you going to subcontract any of your labor? Yes or no? If you're going to, then you need to create a subcontract management plan. So it's kind of the things, consider this, are you going to do it? If you are, this is the plan you need to write. So this is taking both our planning and our development and putting it into that one model. And we find that it helps our engineers go from our government systems work to our commercial systems work yet more easily, because we don't have a government discipline and a commercial discipline. We have one technical, consistent process at Rockwell. So those unified disciplines, these of course are the canned words that I'll say, but we've tried to eliminate redundancy. You know, when there's planning, you do it one time, but then you do iterations as you're going through the planning. It is a pretty simple process model. It's very easy to walk through, and then you tailor it for the project. At one time, when we first started out with the technical consistent process, we actually had a superset of all the activities that was specific to the disciplines. We had a hardware model, software model, ASIC model, and everybody that, if you were in that discipline, you would use this Excel spreadsheet basically that would tell you you had to do all this stuff. And to tailor anything out, you had to go get quality to sign off on it. And people were very leery of getting things tailored out, so they would do everything. Even if your customer only required you to do half of those activities, would never pay for the rest of those activities. The culture was that they didn't want to tailor them out. If it says I'm supposed to do it, I'm going to do it. This is saying, consider it. The way that the checklist is set up, it's a requirement, so it's a must do. It's an optional, good to do, and it's a don't do it. That's the 3 stages of the tasks. And the thing spits out, you know, the checklist for you. So, okay, now this is the lean enablers. This is external groups outside Rockwell Collins. Okay, you guys could get involved in this if you're interested. There's a couple different groups that actually I've got the links to. But this talks about lean enablers for managing engineering programs. Over the last year, we've had the opportunity to work with some folks from MIT, PMI, and COSI, as we have right here. We joined forces, and we formed that group of subject matter experts to distill and integrate the best ideas and practice from the program management and engineering disciplines. And so over the last year, we've identified and prioritized the top challenges that engineering programs face today. And it was really amazing how similar everybody's challenges was. We had people from SAP, we had people from healthcare, we had service providers, we had avionics, we had defense, and it didn't matter what group you were, you still had the same kind of challenges. So when you're doing development, it's kind of all the same, no matter what you're doing. So we used lean management philosophy, and we put together 300 best practices, which sounds like it's just gigantically overwhelming. 300 is a crazy number, but we basically have those into bigger themes. So you could just take a look at it and say, this one theme would really help my company, and just work on that theme of a lean enabler. So the result is lean enablers for managing engineering programs, which will be officially released on Monday. So if you go out and do a Google on Monday, plus I also gave you my website in here, and put in lean enablers for managing engineering programs, you'll get right to that site. Publicly distributed, we want to make sure everybody has access to it. There's no fee for it, and it's basically a white paper right now. And out of that white paper, we're actually going to do training materials. We're going to have metrics set up. So we have another year of challenge ahead of us on doing all this other communication. So this is the lean enablers that I was mentioning. We did start out with lean enablers for systems engineering. That one is the more mature site. It's in COSI, International Council of Systems Engineering. I am the co-chair for the Lean Systems Engineering Working Group. There's lots of working groups within COSI, and it's an international group. It's, you know, people from all over the world. And this particular group has over 200 members, which is a big number in COSI for a working group. So we have email lists. If you want to join, all you have to do is send, go to this site. It'll send me an email if you want to join. No, there's no charge for it or anything. And out of that too, we have products that is the quick reference guide. There's a brochure, and then there's also a the actual document to be used for training. So what these are is the lean principles that can be applied to any engineering discipline. And I used to also distribute them and use them for program management, but now we have another product that we can actually use for that, so that works out. Okay, so this is the challenges I was talking about. So when we got together with the group for the Lean Enablers for Managing Engineering Programs, which basically was a community of practice to start out with, and the community of practice was called Lean Program Management, and that's where we started. So we queried the people that we worked with. I queried a lot of the program managers at Rockwell. The Boeing guys queried the Boeing program managers. The SAP folks, Siemens, other groups, they queried their program management and systems engineering and engineering disciplines. And this is what we found to be the top 10 themes of challenges of trying to work in product development. Engineering, product development, you know, anything that has to do with developing the product, the design and development. So do any of these sound familiar? Firefighting? Do you guys have heroes? We love our heroes. And very reactive. You know, again, we're trying to really do some early planning, try to be more proactive rather than reactive. How about unstable, unclear, and incomplete requirements? Do you have customers that are constantly changing their mind on what they really need, or they can't really tell you what they need? You're supposed to come up with the answer for them. This is a industry-wide issue. Insufficient alignment and coordination of the extended enterprise. That kind of gets down to our silos. You know, if we think about, we have 5 core processes, but we still have core processes in our silos. Is our value stream cut completely across? No. We still have lots of opportunities for that. And I think probably every company is challenged with that. You can optimize something within your own group, but to cut it across the enterprise is really difficult. Even goal alignment. You know, when we're doing design engineering, we want to buy some inventory. We want to buy parts to test. Well, operations has a goal for reducing inventory. So it's, you know, it's always this healthy tension between the groups. Talking about processes and locally optimized, that's basically what I was just talking about, is the value stream doesn't necessarily go horizontal. A lot of it's very vertical. Unclear roles, responsibilities, and accountability. Are you guys familiar with the RASI? Who's responsible? That'd be the X on the forehead. Does anyone need to approve? Who needs to support it? And who needs to be informed? It'd be just like a CC on an email. What I find is in the program planning world, this is one of the most important things we can do. Because people will say, well, I thought you were going to do that. I thought this person was going to do that. No, it's you. You have the X on your forehead. And let's write that down so that people know what they're responsible for. The mismanagement of team competency and knowledge, and that's not ever maliciously done. It's just that we all have knowledge, and how do you share it? How do you make sure that the team knows about what's going on? Communication is always a huge challenge. I don't care how small or big your company is. Insufficient program planning, or no program planning. We have a tendency to like to just start. Go. Well, what's my requirements? There's groups that we've worked with, and I can remember one group that their development was supposed to be done before they ever got the customer requirements. I kept saying, you guys, say it out loud and hear how crazy you sound. I mean, you're saying things that don't make sense. How can your work be done before you understand your requirements? And that was the expectation from program management, is this is your done date, but you don't get your requirements till here. And it just, you know, it's mind-boggling, some of the expectations. Improper metrics, metric systems, and KPIs, and metrics is always a challenge. And in the product development world, it's you know, I think in manufacturing it's probably a little bit easier to see it as it moves through the assemblies. I'm not saying that it's easy, but it's a little easier than something from my head going to your head, going to your head, going to your head. The metrics are tough. Cycle time metrics are tough. Quality metrics are tough. When is it really a defect? If you're doing things that are actually adding value, but it's rework, is that defect? You know, so you have to think about what metrics make sense. The lack of proactive program risk management, that's one thing that we find is really difficult. Not managing your risks. And a lot of that also was tribal knowledge, just really understanding how to document and manage your risks. What is your risk mitigation strategy? What are the things that you can do to overcome those risks? And then theme 10 is really the Department of Defense type thing, so that's your program acquisition and contracting practices. And there's just a huge amount underneath there. I don't know if any of you work for DoD programs, that the acquisition process is terribly broken, and they would tell you that, DoD. It's cumbersome, it's competitive, and it makes companies behave badly. Cost plus programs are not a good lean way to operate. You're never incented to be more efficient because you'll lose money. So cost plus programs and everything associated with any of the acquisition stuff, there's just gigantic opportunities. And I think the Defense Department knows that there's problems, but trying to fix it is just such a huge issue. Okay, so lean product development challenges. These are just some things that are excerpts out of books, working with some of the MIT professors. I have several friends in academia. They capture these metrics and tell these stories. So engineering behavior and requirements are driven by program management, who holds the funds. And is that the way in your folks' groups? I mean, PM holds the funding, engineering does the execution, so there's supposed to be a healthy tension there. But probably also misalignment maybe of goals. Save money, make a profit, try and build something that's technically safe. Those might be at odds with each other. 70 to 80% of all value and waste are driven by poor design solutions. And a lot of that is hurry up and make a decision. Hurry up and be finished before you can get good requirements. And then marketing capturing requirements and turns that into difficult development because they don't understand how it's going to affect the engineering population, how they would ever do what marketing is promised. So this is the opportunity for having a couple technical experts with the marketing people as they go out to the customer and try and sell the solutions. Because the engineering could lead that technical discussion. Let marketing lead the money discussion. Let engineering lead the technical discussion. It's hard to embed experts, in lean engineering because there aren't that many in the world. It's kind of a new field. It's probably been around maybe 15 years, but it's not like there's companies that you can hire, 100 people come in and consult with your company on how to do lean product development. And if the engineers don't understand their value stream, if they don't understand what are my inputs, what are my outputs, and here's my value-added piece of the process, so we're talking about SIPOC now. Who's my supplier? These are my inputs. Process should be my value-added. Outputs should be aligned to my customer expectations. A SIPOC is one of the best tools I think we can use in product development. But you won't ever see waste unless you understand your SIPOC or your value stream. Because everything that I do, if I'm very heads down, I don't look left or right, I might think I'm just contributing value all the time. So, instilling that question of culture, the culture of questioning. Did you guys listen to Mike Stephanie when he was talking about create the culture of asking questions, bringing up problems? One of the best conferences that I went to, a Boeing executive was talking about at his staff meetings. He never wanted to hear about successes. He said, you just bring me challenges and we'll talk about it as a staff. And there will be no meetings, and we're going to talk about it for education. We're all going to learn from the issues. Not come in and just say, oh, this went great. What's the learning there? I mean, you could have some learning from a best practice, but problem solving is really, really the nut of it. So, let's see. Limited on the job training as our mentors get older and retire. It's really hard to keep them on to mentor our new folks coming in. Don't know how to contribute proactively to the design process. But that culture of questioning, a lot of times you're given an assignment and you just go off and do the assignment. We want our engineers to say, does it really have to be at this tolerance? That's going to cause terrible problems in manufacturing. Are you sure you need this dimensions, these tight, this tight? So lean product development approaches. Well, this is actually just some different books. I don't know if you guys have ever read any books. Bart Huthwaite, the Cube Guy. Have you guys ever heard anything about Bart? Lean Design Solution is one of the books that he's written. And if you actually contact him, it's a small kind of homegrown business. He'll send you free books, he'll send you the cube, but it talks about decrease the aims and increase the abilities. So you want to decrease testing, checking, inspecting, and you want to increase producibility, manufacturability, testability. That's the simplest way to explain his approach is increase the abilities, decrease the aims. Evil aims is what he calls them. So lean design, from his perspective, is the power to do less of what doesn't matter and do more of what does matter. Again, going back to lean and from the perspective of the customer. Design the product lean from the start. And how are you going to do that if the culture and the community doesn't understand how does lean apply to me? If I'm an engineer, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. So we have to do education that is tailored to this community. We have to be able to connect the dots because a lot of times they're doing things that are lean. And they just don't even realize that that's what they're doing. You know, what you're doing there is actually a lean process, but you've just never thought of it in those terms before. So when we talk about process thinking, you know, those are big words, but you really want to be thinking about your processes. And I think that's very key. Reducing the number and complexities of the process steps lead to cost savings and quality improvement. Some of these things are just common sense tenets. Optimize product values and prevent wasteful processes for customer and shareholder. So the 8 primary customer values: performability, affordability, featureability, deliverability, usability, maintainability, durability, and imaginability. Imageability. So again, those abilities, those are the things that are important. And then the shareholder values: the profit, the investment, lower risk, but easier to produce. So those are things that the customer and the shareholder cares about. So Bart also goes on to say, and he has written a couple books now, and he does certification training. You can go take his classes. He's up in, Mackinac Island? I think that's where his home base is, but he goes to companies and he does consulting too. And he has a staff that does it. Raytheon has employed them. Boeing's used them. Several big companies have used his approach. So this is just talking about the product development process and the product design process. Just a little bit of different words around it. And his thing is never try to improve the product development process without improving the product design process. They're paired together. So make sure that you keep them together. The best product development process is of no value if it doesn't directly result in good product design. Again, another common sense thing. He's pretty common sense. He tries to take it all back to something that's really applicable. The best product design team has little chance of success without direction, support, and leadership. Again, we had a tendency to just go, start! Here, project, start. Here's a charge number, go start. And focus on knowledge-based product development opportunities. Michael Kennedy's book, The Product Development for the Lean Enterprise, is very good. So Bart's book is good, Michael Kennedy's book is very good, and you'll get lots of information from those. And this actually is some excerpts out of Michael Kennedy's book, The Product Development for the Lean Enterprise. He goes back a lot to the Toyota principles and making sure that you have a deep understanding of the values of the customers. And when you think about the engineering community, they really don't touch the customers. A lot of times they don't ever even see the end product, they're doing a piece of it. So you have to be able to instill in them what the customer values. And the close supplier integration, we all know how our supply chain makes or breaks our business. But I don't think we would treat it with respect we should, because they really should be partners. Strong partners with skin in the game. Strong technical and entrepreneurial project leadership, always looking for a better way to do it, better technical designs, better solutions. How do you retain your knowledge? My group also is involved in the knowledge management part of Rockwell Collins, but how do you retain the knowledge? It's all up here. A lot of it's tribal knowledge, a lot of it's just tried and true, you know, been doing it for 35 years, 50 years, 10 years, whatever. So how do you retain the knowledge and how do you share the knowledge? So that you make sure that it's being shared across. And then that high workforce skills and sense of responsibility. One thing that, even just using the simple RAS sheet, that simple tool, if I know I'm responsible, I'm accountable for it too. But a lot of times we don't even know that we're responsible. We don't know we have the X on the forehead. And that leads into my summary. So the biggest point is lean absolutely applies to product development. Absolutely. It has so many applications to product development. This is just skimming the surface. You can dive deep with books, references, experts. There's lots of stuff out. If you even just go out and Google lean product development, you'll have lots of information that comes up. And it must be embedded throughout the design process. If you don't worry about lean until it hits the manufacturing floor, you have lost the game. It's just way too late. So lean product development is really increasing the value for your customer and eliminating waste, but really emphasizing increasing value for the customer. I think that that's a much healthier way to think about it as far as making sure you're operating on value rather than eliminating waste. And a lot of times I think people interpret the waste as walks in on 2 feet. That should never be the case. It always should be process-based, never personal. So that's what I have. Any questions? So, like I said, really, really good books out there now on lean product development. Reinertsen just wrote one that is excellent. There's Michael Kennedy has several books. Bart Huthwaite. If you just type in lean product development, there's a wealth of resources out there. And you can also get engaged in groups like what I'm involved with. Lots of lean product development groups that you can, there's conferences, there's webinars, there's lots of things that you can get involved outside of your own company.
So how long have you been focusing on lean product development, and what are some of the breakthroughs that you've had?
At Rockwell Collins, we have been focusing on lean product development since we did our design and development CPO. We were always doing it, kind of tentatively before because we were really focused on manufacturing. So I would say at least since 99 to 2000. And we are just skimming the surface. It really, there's so many engineers that you could talk to and they'd say, I don't know how lean applies to me, I don't know what you're talking about. But then when you walk them through the process and say, well, you understand your value stream. Here's your most important customer requirements. Here's your MERS. You're making sure that you're producing value for your customer. So you are doing lean things now. Understanding there's even a value stream is sometimes the biggest aha. Those inputs, are you getting what you need to start your work? And then they'll say no. Well then, why are you starting? Don't start until you got entrance criteria. And how do you know when you're done? We had groups that were they love to engineer. They give you a gold-plated Cadillac if you let them engineer till the dimes were gone. But what if the customer only wants the Volkswagen? Bare bones. So it's a different way of thinking. What does the customer want? What does the customer need? And then doing the design to what the customer values. That's why I really like to focus more on customer value rather than eliminating waste. Because in creating intellectual property, how can you say you're creating waste when it's thoughts, it's ideas, it's development, it's innovation, it's inventing things, dreaming up things. So it's hard to think about how could that be waste. We have an advanced technology center that does a lot of our 5 to 10 year out dreaming of the technology. And we've done lean activities with them. And we say, if you just take all that technology and shelve it and it never comes off the shelf, you really have never created value, ever. So it's almost like, that could almost be crushing to a researcher or a developer who did this, but if it never ever gets put in use, never gets applied, you've really just created waste. Not to say that it wasn't a good thing to do, but at this point it wasn't valued by any customer, never went into a product. But for Ed Rockwell, like I said, we've been doing it since about 1990, 2000.
It's tough. We've just scratched the surface on. We're in construction, and so we build Hy-Vee stores. We're partnered with Hy-Vee through their whole design process. They do all that internally, most of it. And so we kind of got with them to say, okay, we have our lean processes going in the field.
Yes.
Now we wanted to start moving up the overall value stream to get into the office, and want to work on the pre-construction and design part of it because we're both very involved in it. And we started off by doing a value stream map of all the processes, and what we learned through just getting everybody in the room, putting it up on the wall was, okay, what our current state is actually just kind of got everybody to agree on how it's currently done, because it's not really, everybody knows their job, it's like, okay, well, we gotta
Right.
start by getting the floor plan approved, then it, then it goes to this department and kind of filters its way through, but it's never been documented on how it's done. It's just done.
Exactly.
So we put that up and found that, it's, the waste and areas that we can improve isn't when people are actually sitting down and working on the design, it's very good work and it gets done efficiently. It's all the handoffs in between and the requirements that you talk about that you struggle with. And then at the end of the day, where we kind of struggle, we got this whole map putting Visio up on the wall, and we have project sticky notes that they just kind of, we move them through the process. And as one's held up, it turns to a yellow sticky note, or if it's completely stopped, it's red. And
Very good.
kind of a visual thing, but the problem is there's really no ownership of it. And so, and also the, figuring out, like yours, it's hard to measure. If you're in a manufacturing plant, you can measure your cycle times and all that stuff, you just follow the material through. Well, in product development, you don't need a stopwatch and a notepad, you need a calendar and a sleeping
Months,
bag.
days, years, yes.
And so capturing that data, it becomes kind of a chore and following through on how you're getting those cycle times out, making sure things aren't sitting in an inbox for 2 weeks and that kind of stuff. So it's not easy.
It's not easy, but what I've advised when I work with other people is, rather than wrap yourself around an axle around the actual data that we would put in a value stream, that would be the typical data of a manufacturing plant, think more of a process map. And the process map, you're going to have those indicators of where there's the stops and the reworks and the loop backs. And if you can just fix those things, your cycle time is going to flatten. I mean, it's going to go faster. Because, first of all, it's very, very hard to make any kind of consistency. If you've got engineer X working on something, then engineer Y does something else, it's real hard to say this is the average time it takes that when it's different people, different pieces of the process. But if you can get rid of your reworks and your cues and your handoffs and get that flow improved, that in itself is, even just capturing the current state is a win. Because probably nobody ever saw that picture. And to see it and then to say, oh my goodness. And then start looking for those opportunities. And those are the ones probably less time-based because of the years or weeks or months or whatever it takes. But just eliminate those handoffs and defects, errors. And is it because of the transmission of information? With your process map how your information's flowing too. And you guys almost have an opportunity to do concurrent engineering. Be with them as they're doing the design, because they'll come up with a really hard design and you'll say, we're going to be able to build that on the field. So change the design right away, so it doesn't even get built into the product.
That's what we're trying to get into now, because really you want the foreman in the field who's going to be installing that work as a part of that discussion.
Absolutely.
But the problem is product development happens, then it gets bid, then it gets built. Complete inefficient way to do it, but it's the way it's been done for hundreds of years. So changing that, saying, convincing the client that partnering with somebody to work through product development and then have them do the project is cheaper than design bid build.
It is.
They can't grasp that though. I mean,
you should get them to do one pilot. Say, let's do one pilot store and do it as concurrent engineering and have that integrated stakeholder cross-functional
Or
team.
don't even pilot a smaller project, like an add-on for a garden.
A shed.
And what we've convinced them to do is to try it on an upcoming project that's getting ready to enter that phase, but they still want to bid out. So you're put in a tough position because you're like, okay, so contractor X, we like your help in designing this, but then we're going to bid it out after the fact, and hopefully you're low. It's like, well, we're not really, it's not technically lean, I mean,
Right.
but if we can pay them for their product development services or design services, at least they're paid for their time, and then they have an opportunity to get it, and after
They
the
probably
work,
have a better opportunity to win the bid because they're gonna know more.
Yeah. But just think what you could do as far as the new horizon for that. It's never been done like that. And then you write something up about it. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can capitalize on this. You make it a success. Seriously. You shorten up your cycle times, you improve the quality, you give the customer a greater value at the end of the process. just by showing the concurrent development, the stakeholders all involved. And it's all common sense. They'll get so much value out of it working together. Because you know that when you get blueprints and drawings and stuff, and you go, what in the heck was that person thinking? You know, the same thing with our products now. If they hand it off and say, good luck with that. Can you go build this? No. And then start all the red marks. But yeah, that would be very cool. You have a huge opportunity. But with your process map, I would worry less about the data and worry more about those handoffs and reworks and wire defects being introduced. Because if you can get rid of those, you're well on your way to having a really, really good process.
I think one place we kind of fell down at the end of that was we had that map up there, we still use it, we just don't get a lot of value out of it because now everybody knows the process that goes on, so that's good. We got a lot of improvement out of that, but we didn't have a metric up there showing what percentage of projects hit every milestone, or of each milestone, what percentage of the time do they hit, you know, that kind of stuff. Because if
So
we
you
had that
have a
up there,
baseline, right?
it would be eye-opening because the
Yes.
manager of the engineering department would walk by there and be like, holy cow, we're at 40%
Yeah.
of hitting this deadline, why is that? And then start asking the questions and then going back and fixing it. I think we need to go back and add that because we don't.
Absolutely. It's never too late to add that. I mean, all you do is just keep that thing as a living, breathing document. And okay, you started with this. Now as you mature, you add these ingredients. And then you start seeing the measurable results because the data is what's going to hit them between the eyes. I mean, that's where people are going to go. I reduced my steps from 50 to 10, or my time from 10 weeks to 1 week, or whatever those dramatic changes are. And people always want a return on the investment. You know, that's what they're going to be looking for. But having that map and looking at it, just living and breathing is a huge opportunity. Keep going back and refreshing it. And like I said, even if it's just a process map, that's way better than when you have nothing. But that'd be very cool if you could do that and then write it out. Publicize it. Celebrate your success. Any other questions or comments?
How do you capture tribal knowledge? What are some of the-
Oh, geez, it's so hard. Okay, so what we did a thing for a while that we called brain drain. Before we knew somebody was going to retire, we would actually assign someone to just go up and just take notes. Just go up and talk to them for the last couple of weeks before they left. Well, anything that came out of them, we captured. Right now, we have a wiki format that people can go in and enter their own information in, like on best practices or issues they've run into. But that's still in the adopt. I mean, we really have barely scratched the surface on that at Rockwell Collins. It's there, it's available, it's ready to use, but it's getting people to actually capture it. That's the challenge. But there are, if you read books on knowledge management, there are different things that you can do as far as that.
It always seems like it's somewhat easy to get the inputs, but to get the information out of it later.
Like by searching and, yes,
You know,
yes.
I have a database with a whole bunch of lessons learned.
Yeah.
It's using that,
Yes.
rather
Be
than,
able to find what you want.
rather than sharing,
So what you have to get people, and this again it's generational, because I know I'm not the one who would go type that stuff in. Kristen would.
Okay.
She would go in and put in her lessons learned. I would not, just because it's not what I'm used to doing, even though I should. But if you have the metadata behind it, if you've got any kind of search engine that you could use to find that, at Rockwell we have something that we call eSearch. I think it's just called search now, but it was searching our databases, our intranet. We have a SharePoint sites that are everywhere, and if you typed in keywords, it would do searches for those things.
Okay.
So if people could keyword appropriately to where people could find the data later. But right now what we have is this wiki, and it says there's an area for best practices. So at worst case, you could scroll down through them or do a search on those keywords. But it's tough, and just getting those things indexed was a real chore. I mean, going through with we had a couple individuals from our IT organization, and it was a full-time job for how long? Getting these things indexed and then encouraging people to put the right metadata in there to be able to search the correct ways. So.
If the search doesn't work good, people are going to try it once and they'll never go back.
Exactly.
And they did that for a while.
Yeah.
And it got better.
Yeah, it continues to get better, but it is something it's seen as a differentiator within companies to be able to do search, because when we were doing our design development, we actually did a refresh on the core process optimization. And that was one of the things from the engineers, they were always searching for data. They were looking for information they couldn't find. So we said, well, if we could have some sort of search that would find this stuff, program reviews or technical data or whatever, make sure that it's access controlled, that it would make engineers more efficient. Like 25–30% more efficient. Because a lot of times you don't know who to call, you don't know where this came from, somebody did it, but where's it at now? So that's a journey in itself. But it was recognized as a big thing to do at Rockwell, and there was a lot of investment put into it. And I think you can do it on the cheap. There's probably tools out there that are not very expensive.
Maybe the next up, that best practices.
Yes.
How does Rockwell share those amongst the different groups or design groups?
We're actually trying to use the same approach using that wiki where people can go in and put in their best practices. Our government system side actually had a database that was controlled, and when they would do an after-action review after their programs were completed, they would actually scribe the best practices and then put them in a restricted database. Because they had to be careful with technical data, if there was anything in there that had. So you could go back to that database if you had no access problems, or you could call the coordinators for that database and ask them about it. But we haven't instilled the culture of go out and look through that best practices and lessons learned database before you start another project. So that's the missing link. Is it makes no sense to capture those if you're going to do nothing with them. If it's just going to be captured and tossed, basically, then don't do it. Don't waste your time. But if you do after-action reviews, postmortems, program reviews, whatever, and then you start the new program with, this group did something similar to what we're going to do. Let's go look and see if they document anything, or even just call the program manager, the technical project manager, somebody to come over and give us some ideas. We're doing joint ventures now. We've never done joint ventures, like with China. There's a couple people who have worked on joint ventures. Before you start that project, call that person and talk to them. So sometimes it's connecting people to people, and other times it's people to knowledge or information, I guess.
Yeah, hot link of them, like your gate, if you call them gates reviews. In other words, if you got best practices for this type of work that's done in this area, you could hot link them.
Yes,
I mean, there's different ways to have access that guarantees nobody not necessarily could use them, but
Right.
they're available if they would so want to take a look.
and we use the heck out of hyperlinks, because if it's easy,
Yeah.
people hopefully will go to it.
If you don't make it easy, they gotta have it.
Exactly. Our technical consistent process, that one tool I talked about that was very specific to our engineering process, everything in there, we even have it where you mouse over the question and it gives you more detail, and then it's hot linked into more detail, and then that has hot links to more detail.
Just
So
how much do you want?
exactly. Do you want to learn everything there is to know about this thing, or do you need to at least know what does this question mean? So we try and use those clarifications, those hot links, and you have to make it easy. And you have to make it to where it gives them what they want, or they won't do it. And like you said, do it once, and if it fails, I'm never doing it again. So I think that data says twice, but you only get 2 times.
But if they don't find value, they won't go back.
Absolutely. Yeah. The thing with the search, when we were trying to actually institute search at Rockwell, it took years for people to even try it, and if they had a bad experience, they were completely down on it. And then, they would enhance it a little bit more, and then they'd say, give it another chance. And a lot of the company now is at least trying it. It might not be for the technical information, but like we have an incentive pay plan. I think that's one of the biggest hits that we get, is people going out looking at that. What's the status of our incentive pay plan? And even that in itself, you either waited for your manager to tell you, or you waited for an announcement. So you think that's not a big deal, but if something I want to find benefits, I can go out now to my benefits page and find my information right away. Where I might have had to make a phone call, send an email, whatever. But yeah, hyperlinks are critical. Metadata is critical. But how do you get that knowledge, and then how do you get them to use it? Big challenge. Opportunities.
Opportunities.
We have lots of opportunities. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm glad that you guys came down and listened. And thank you, Brian, for filming me.